watching the tide roll away, just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It
Force.
is very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one. Welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Our producer for the show tonight is none other than Mr. Sensational himself, the great Mr. Craig Gibson. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM studios. This is Tuesday, the 22nd day of April 2025. And if it's a Tuesday, you know the deal. It's Maritime Tick, 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 Tick Matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tune in with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my little cuz, Shantia Heel McBride, and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau, and of course, Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport. Fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site 101pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. The three locations are East Street South. And you know when you go in there, you guys say hello to Joy. Joy is the pharmacist who will put things together for whatever you need. They're also located on Charles Sanders Highway. You know that one right in the same plaza bit. What that place name is, where all the money? Island Lock. Yeah. In there, we have, of course, 101 Pharmacy. That will give you whatever you need for your medication needs. And when you go in there, check my other cuss. We call her Stella. Her name, of course, Ansela Hepburn. Check Ansela out. And, you know, she run the money up in there. So Ansela will give you a little something off that something. Even if it's 2%, maybe 5%. Ansela, do something for your boy, man. Just tell her, you know, and the same thing with my cousin up in Freeport. Stephanie run things up in there on Explorers Bay, downtown Freeport, right on the opposite side of the Regent Center with Scotia Bank and all of them. Stephanie sits right in there. She run things. She could take a little something off that something too. Just tell her, Captain Glenn Bain sent us here. And he said, when we come here, you can take a little something off that something. And give Steph a kiss. That's my big cuz. Oh, shucks. That's even Shani. That's Shanti and Mommy. So, daughter on operations. Let me stop before I get beat up in here tonight. Steph wasn't doing too good lately, but she bounced back in true Hepburn style. You know, all us as Hepburn clan. We from the Hepburn race. So, she's good now. Good to go again. And she'll be there in Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, and at BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. We got an office here in Nassau. Our main office is on East Street South, right there by Resurrection Drive and East Street, just north of Porky's and Kentucky them. And of course, in the office there, we got the big Chief Mario, who deals with all the IT and engineering stuff. We got Lady Kathy, who deals with all accounts, and that's the one with the hard mouth and the bad. She's carry on bad. And then, of course, we got Lady Dawn Simonet, who runs the office. She runs things all the time. And in Freeport, of course, we got my bestie, Lydia Henfield. Well, Lydia Ferguson Henfield. Lydia runs things in that Freeport office. She's the manageress. She runs things on the streets, wherever we located, and she keeps things ticking. So I say hello to Lydia, I say hello to Kathy, I say hello to Dawn, I say hello to Mario. These are the strings that run the BMC office in Nassau and Freeport. And of course, they tell me I'm in charge, Captain Glenn Bain. Now, tonight, we wish to discuss the most heated recent maritime-related issues. And our topics for the night, we're getting kind of deep, but our topics for the night, of course, are as follows. The U.S. reversed that $1 million per port call fee on Chinese-built ships. Not for everybody. Don't get it twisted. They reversed that for certain operations. So last Thursday, on the last show, we were saying, my good friend Herbert Brain and I, we were talking about how this thing is going to impact the Caribbean and more specifically the Bahamas so badly that prices are going to soar if something doesn't happen immediately, if not before. And we were saying, let's see what happened Thursday. And I wasn't too optimistic that things would take a turn the way it did. I thought that they would probably chisel a little piece out or go down on the fee based on the size of those ships and the amount of TEUs they could carry and all the rest of that. But you know what? There are some things we have to consider. Number one, Mar-a-Lago is in West Palm Beach, where tropical shipping resides. Number two, Senator Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is now the Secretary of State, I think that is. And he got a lot of influence when it comes to these decisions. And he's from Florida, so he knows tropical shipping. Eh? Tropical shipping is big when it comes to South Florida. And so I think based on those two facts, that should have lent very much so to the reversal of this decision when it comes not only to tropical shipping, but all vessels that are China built operating within 200 nautical miles of certain U.S. ports. Now, when they say 200 nautical miles, we know, or we should know, that the Eastern Caribbean is well over 300 miles away from Florida, right? For the most part. And what we need to take into consideration, though, is that a U.S. port is San Juan, Puerto Rico. So they're not more than 200 nautical miles from San Juan. So it still covers the entire Caribbean. That's the way I see it. And I think that's the thought process behind that 200 nautical miles instead of 350, 400 nautical miles. Because that ain't necessary, eh? But they just want to make sure the entire Caribbean is not impacted by that mandate that all, and I want you to know that mandate is coming into effect. So outside of the Caribbean and the Great Lakes and where else did it say? Somewhere else. Every ship that visits the U.S. from foreign ports that is built in China will have to pay that $1 million. So as we can see, that reversal by the U.S. and administration, and there's a section that deals with this type of thing, right? They reversed the decision to make it a blanket application for all ships visiting the America or the U.S. ports that were built in China. And they said the ships in the regional areas like the Bahamas, like Jamaica, like the Eastern Caribbean, of course, they would be exempted. And in so doing, we'll talk about the details of what happens. Because our hotels, our supermarkets, our building material suppliers, etc., etc., etc. They would have had to go up on their rates by I don't know what, because they're saying somewhere in the range of $3,000 per 40-foot container would have to be levied or charged by tropical shipping if, in fact, that mandate was to hold firm beyond Thursday. So our hotel, supermarkets, building material suppliers, and all of people like me and you who have things come on tropical shipping, we could breathe a sigh of relief that the rates are not going to be affected per se. Well, we got inflation, whether that's happening or not. So they may go up from time to time. We don't imagine they can go down no time soon. But tropical, 9 of their ships, 9 of their 19-strong vessel fleet, that's like 47%, almost 50, almost half of their fleet are Chinese built. And we dodged a bullet because they would no longer have to charge that $3,000 for every 40-foot container if they would continue the service and have to pay that $1 million every time the ship returned to the U.S. And we'll go into some details of how many times their ships actually returns to the U.S. and how much that would have cost them, which would have been somewhere in the range of $500 million a year. And of course, they don't even make that in profit. So if they don't make $500 million in profit, then, like I said last week, they would have had to close shop. All right? Our second big topic for the night is going to be Norwegian Cruise Line. How it is alleged that on their private island in the Bahamas, which is Great Stirrup Key, there are a lot of labor violations, according to the employees on the key. You know, they stage all kind of protests and they blew the whistles and they say, look, man, these people taking advantage of us because your laws say anybody working in this country supposed to be getting this plus that. These people ain't getting us none of that. Plus they paying us below the minimum wage. Now, we know so far that the Director of Labor advised that all workers in the Bahamas, no matter what their nationality is, have to be treated in accordance with our labor laws. And the director and his team were preparing to go there last Wednesday. Now, did they go? I don't know. But what they said is they go in tomorrow, which would have been Wednesday. And if they don't get to go just before the holiday, because, you know, the holiday, we had a long holiday weekend. They don't want to go there over the holidays. So they would have to go, they would have gone today if they didn't go on Wednesday. Did they go on Wednesday? Somebody call and let us know, if you know. If they didn't go on Wednesday, did they go today? Again, please. I don't have a clue. I don't even know Mr. Thompson. I probably a handsome fellow. But at the end of the day, somebody who knows Mr. Thompson and knows his whereabouts, please let us know if he did make that trip or he did send a team to Great Stirrup Key to inquire and get to the bottom of these allegations. The employees are claiming basically that they're being paid below the minimum wage for the Bahamas and that they're not being paid ample overtime. In other words, they're working, some 10 hours a day or something like that. And so that means they're working more than 8 hours a day all the time. I don't think if they get any day off, they might get 1 day, not 2 days a week. So, you know, it's a lot of calculations got to go into that pay. And they're saying that all kind of things going wrong. They're not getting vacation pay and that type of thing. So we got to look into it because our laws provide that people any employee is compensated for those things. And I happen to know because I run a company and I had to go to plenty labor reconciliation meetings. And as you go to these meetings, you get to understand how the law is supposed to be applied when it comes to employment in this country. And I have a fair idea, so I will welcome calls. If you need clarity on that, I'm more than happy to do that. Plus, I want to say a little, not at this very moment, but I want to say a little about what happens on those ships that have contracts from countries like the Philippines. Like, well, Ukraine ain't big in it now, of course, because that war going on, but Ukraine is big player with engineers. Like India. Like, these people have to sign contracts for the 8 months or 10 months, however they're going to join those ships. And those contracts have provisions for how these people have to be paid. They have what you call fixed overtime whenever they go over 8 hours a day. Then they have something called extra overtime when they go with, well, the fixed overtime is a fixed, they work 10 hours a day, period. Right? And if they want them to do extra work outside of 10 hours, they call it extra overtime, and they pay them a different rate. I know because I used to manage ships, and we had to apply it to, based on the STCW code in international labor, there's something called ILO-IMO code of practice that seafarers ought to be compensated based upon. And all these things come into effect. They have to have rest periods where you have to give them at least 6 straight hours off every day. You can't, even if you give them 10 hours off, you can't give them 5 hours here and then 5 hours there. No, it got to be 4 and 6. It got to be at least 6 at a time, or 7 and 3. But you can't give them, have a whole 24-hour period pass and you didn't give an employee on board the vessel at least a straight 6 hours for them to rest. And that's the international requirement for ships, because of course ships go by international rules, right, or international law. And that don't necessarily apply to folks working on land like Great Stirrup Cay. But don't forget now, it was said, or it was indicated, and I read it in the press, where the owners of Great Stirrup Cay, who are Norwegian Cruise Line, were hinting or indicating that these people are really employed by the ship and we have them on the quay doing some work. What nonsense, eh? They're employed by the ship, by one of NCL's ships. In other words, they working based on ship's international law. So what they're trying to suggest is, we don't have to pay attention to the Bahamas regulations when it comes to employment. That minimum wage and all that don't apply to people working on the ship because they're international ships. But if they're working on the ship, then they shouldn't be working on the land. They shouldn't even have no work permit to work on the land. Once they get a work permit that authorizes them to work in the Bahamas, and I still think too much of them getting work permit. I used to have 5-1 foreigners to Bahamians when it comes to working on a quay, which we do all the time. We work big hotels like Atlantis, and you tell me we can't work a quay like where a cruise ship comes in. They ain't got a hotel there. Most of the work is cleaning up, raking up, giving out towels, transporting people up and down in Gulf carts. So what part of that you need foreigners to do? What those foreigners doing that we don't have qualified Bahamians to do? You see, our government, and when I say the government, I'm not talking about Philip Davis administration or Hubert Minnis or Hubert Ingram or Perry Christie administration. I'm talking about the government of the Bahamas. Not no administration. Our government should ensure that Bahamians are not replaced by foreigners when it comes to working in this country. Don't give foreigners work permit for things that Bahamians should be able to do and could do and we know can do. And then bragging about how much money you're making off work permit and the Bahamian ain't getting that job. It's just a bunch of slackness in our country that we have been tolerating for decades. And you know what? Enough is enough, eh? Enough is enough. We, the Bahamian people, need to put our foot down. We, the Bahamian people, need to scream out. And the same situation, the Director of Labor and his team are going to a quay to address some labor issues where Bahamians are outnumbered 5-1. But that's the first issue they should be carry immigration with you. Immigration issue those permits, right? But I don't even know if they got work permits. In a lot of cases, we assume certain things. If the Bahamas Department of Immigration is issuing work permit so that you have 5-1 foreigners to Bahamians on a quay that don't even have a hotel, somebody please let me know. what that is all about. Let me know why, how, what's going on. What? We just a bunch of dunce people who are supposed to see through that? I remember a couple of years, this back when I was in the port department as deputy port controller. Excuse me. And I could talk this, because this happened. This actually happened. My good friend, I could call his name, because I don't hear mind if I call his name on the show. Cyril Roker. Cyril Roker had a brother that was in the water sport business. And that company that his brother owned ventured to go to Coco Key and Great Stirrup Key to wake his jet skis and parasail boat. Do you know that he was sent away? He was sent away, and a call came from a government minister, not just an MP, a government minister, that threatened my boy Cyril Roker, saying, don't look for no promotion in the port department. You trying to disturb the apple cart. You trying to, what they call it, rough up the apple cart. You need to stay in your place, stay in your lane. In other words, you and your brother getting in the way of these foreigners making up all this money, doing their own water sport, which they shouldn't be doing. And I think they're still doing it today. I think if you go to any one of those private islands, you don't have Bahamians offering water sport, motorized water sport, or non-motor. They're not even supposed to be renting kayaks, you hear me? They're not supposed to be renting kayaks. Or with them other little things to go and pedal and just move around on top of the water. Even they shouldn't even be able to rent it too. They cannot, technically, in this country, anything that apply for hire, when it comes to maritime, is reserved for Bahamians. Well, that's what our government policy states. These are areas reserved for Bahamians. And one of the areas is transportation. Transportation includes anything that floats on the sea. So, I don't know if they get somebody to front it, or if they get a legitimate Bahamian company or group of companies in coming out of Berry Islands. Because I want you to know now, those keys, that's Coco Key and Great Stirrup Key, form part of the Berry Island chains. And the settlement there that has the natives, I don't have a Chub Key in them because they fight it down, they're out of the way. Everything happens out of Bullocks Harbour, Great Harbour Key. That's where all the Bahamian staff lives. Because ain't nobody sleep on the people. Nowadays, I think some people sleep on the key overnight because they built accommodations for some workers, right? Well, of course, the ones who they leave, who they say supposed to work on the ship, they gotta live somewhere, so they build accommodations. So nowadays, you don't have as much people, but back in the day when I was around at the port, we would have, or they would have, boat going early in the morning to both of those keys to carry workers. A couple times a day, they up and down between Bullocks Harbour and those two keys. Because, you know, back then it wasn't as popularized, or I don't know, population wise, right? They didn't have so many people on these cruise ships. Cruise ships wasn't so big to carry 4,000 and 5,000 passengers. And you go to Coco Key right now, you got two big ships, largest ships in the world, coming straight to the dock. Could you imagine how much money is being made from jet skis, parasail, and non-motorized equipment? They got all kind of lagoons around that key with non-motorized equipment. You just go and lay out and don't be disturbed, and you ain't got no motor, no, you ain't hearing nothing. But these are jobs for Bahamian companies, and this is why you need a port authority in Bullocks Harbour, in Great Harbour Key, to approve who is going to do these things, and they should only approve Bahamians. Meaning, just like at Atlantis, just like at Bahamas, the provision of water sport equipment is provided by Bahamians only. So why on that key they've been provided by the owners of the key, the foreign entities? I hope that's changing if it hasn't changed already. Because if it haven't, then we have an issue not only with the Director of Labor addressing his situation. I have an issue with the Department of Immigration, the poor department who goes and approves and signs off on those equipment every year. They got to go and inspect them because I used to inspect them. And that's when I saw them and I had a problem with it. But I've been gone. Roker and just spank. He became port control eventually. I don't know whatever happened after that. But we need to look into these simple things. And we need to put things right in this country for Bahamians and not for foreigners. And we got a call on the line. Caller, you on Maritime Matters. Thank you very much for calling.
I'm doing everything.
Top shape and getting better, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, he's mad, man. I can hear you.
Look, I get so frustrated when I think about what's going on in this country with these entities who come into to scrape. Mind you, they're not making up all the money by keeping the people captured in their little area, selling them fruits, renting them chairs and stuff on the beach and putting them in condos on the beach. You hear that? Condos.
Yeah, you're right. I used to work on Coco Key during the construction phase.
So you see what I'm talking about.
There to provide something. But let me tell you something. I just want to speak to something that we need to solve. In order to fix most of our problems, we need to fix one major problem. That is corruption. Listen, Glenn, everything you mentioned, the authorities know.
I know they know.
Everything.
They know.
So it is pure, uncut corruption. Listen, that's all immigration. That's just a big work permit shop. Okay? That's where you go to buy and work permit. Basically, that's all it is.
So when they're giving out these permits, they don't even check to see if Bahamians. They know Bahamians can do the thing. What are these people doing? What are they doing on these key that Bahamians can do?
Bahamians, they're interested in money. These people, see, on the surface, they'll talk as if they are patriotic. But these are some of the most corrupt people ever walk the face of the planet.
My Lord.
And I mean that. I ain't talking from what I think.
You saying this?
If a fella can call your boy and tell him he ain't getting no promotion.
That ain't no fella now. That's a whole cabinet minister. That ain't just a fella who tell him that.
Huh?
That was a whole cabinet minister who told him that.
Man, we corrupt. Let me tell you.
Yeah, we got it bad, man.
That's just there, Go down to the Ministry of Works and try to get something done without having to pay somebody double.
Oh,
you
yeah.
Get nothing done around here.
Boy, that's something, mate. You got to be.
The whole country is corrupt. And when Prime Minister Minutes went abroad and said that, everybody want to cut off the man head.
No, I think you should say that. I think you should go and, man, look here, when you have your little operation going on in your house with your problems, I think you need to spread the dirty laundry to the world. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that one. I don't care how corrupt you are. I think that should be said out to the world.
Listen to me. You invite the people here, tell them we all honest and decent running to get here. The gangsters rob them blind because they ain't take no caution. Listen to me. Don't suppress the truth, man. That's how I live my life. I try my best to be honest and speak the truth. Because
yeah, but you can't go to bragging. You can't go to bragging.
Are Bahamians corrupt? Or is there corruption in your country? Whatever. You going to suppress that or you going to speak the truth?
But the thing is, every country in the world have corruption. Do you see any other country leader going out there and saying that?
But listen, man, I live here and I realize by the things I witnessed in the Bahamas.
Boy, you'll be surprised to know these other countries. I mean, you name the country and I can tell you, boy, corruption pile up like that.
I understand that.
Yeah, but they don't go. They don't go there telling the world that.
They parade as this and that, but some people corrupt. Glenn, keep pressing on, man. You're gonna make a breakthrough.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. You know how I go. I ain't stop it. Appreciate the call, my friend. Yes, that's, we got to get hot under the collar. when you got these type of things going on, I mean, it's now most of us don't see that, but some of us see it, and we got people who doing it. They know. You think the people in the immigration department don't know that they have 5 to 1 foreigners outnumbering the Bahamians, waiting on that key, doing little things that Bahamians could do every day, doing everywhere else in the Bahamas? They know. But somebody got to make that little couple dollars for waving and saying they ain't really checking to see if Bahamians waking. They ain't really checking to see if Bahamians providing all the water sports services on these keys. They ain't really check, because I don't know, maybe that's the reason why they don't have port authorities in those areas. Because the port authority in that area will ensure that Bahamians have these jobs. That's what it will do. Anyway, we got to get back to tropical in them, right? So we want to know what's going on with that Labor Department team that should have gone either last Wednesday or today to Great Stirrup Key. They should have flown to Great Harbor Key, I guess, and taken the boat ride, because Great Stirrup Key ain't got no airstrip. I could tell you, I've been there a couple times. And check into what's going on, and not only check into whether these people are being fairly compensated, which I think that's the purpose of going there, but also check into exactly what they're doing that Bahamians shouldn't be doing or Bahamians can't do. Why are they doing these jobs? If you ask me, I don't think one foreigner should be on that key. Not one. Why do you need a foreigner on a key that's accommodating the cruise ship? What technical? I mean, we got computer wizards. Why do if you want to have a person representing the owner? Yeah, well, he could come there to oversee certain things, but he can't be there taking up a position, because you know on some of these keys now they got foreigners being PFSOs, port facility security officers. Everywhere else in the country, we got Bahamians as PFSOs. We got a lot of Bahamian who PFSO certified, can't find jobs. But they got foreigners being port facility security officers. They're in charge of the security. And in some cases, even in the security team, they got foreigners. And our government policy say the security industry is reserved for Bahamians only. And I could almost assure you that those sorry sufferers holding those posts on those keys do not hold a work permit saying they could be security. Because our laws should not contradict our government policy, or our government policy should not contradict our law. So we know that if you have a policy that is saying Bahamians only doing security work in this country, the immigration department wouldn't be issuing a work permit to a foreigner. We talked about that a couple times on the show, right? I could recall where we had at the big Atlantis Hotel. When Atlantis first started, they had one of our most noted senior policemen in charge of security. And that was my good friend, may his soul continue to rest in peace, Mr. Basil Dane. Basil Dane was, I think, chief superintendent or assistant commissioner at the time when he left the force and went to take over security at Atlantis when they rebuilt Atlantis. And I know because he took me on tours. And Basil and I got together because I knew him before he went there. When I was on defense force, I met Basil Dane and Mr. Paul Farquharson and those guys. We met because we were in heated discussions over the defense force police games, competitions, and sports. And we used to lock on so much because they always was trying to get an edge. And you know, we had one or two weak fellas on our side. I don't want to call their name, especially the one who was in charge. But we had some weak fellas on our side, and I had to be the biggity one to make sure they don't railroad us. And out of that came good camaraderie and good friendship. And every time I would see Basil, he and I would talk and be happy to see each other. And when he went to Atlantis and he took over in security, and I was deputy port controller. He called me over. Ben, man, we got to talk. And he and I made arrangements for meetings with the Port Authority board members and the jet ski people and the security team. They were writing reports, and I was getting copies of those reports and following up on prosecuting these guys. And let me tell you something. After Basel Dane, there was, I think, Mr. Douglas Hanna. Because I think he was the deputy to Mr. Basel Dane. And after Basel passed on, Dougie took over. And I think Dougie's still there. But now I understand a foreigner's going to take over from Dougie. Why would we be going backwards? Are we saying that we don't have any more Bahamians in the security industry or in the police force or defense force that can run a hotel security? Is the Department of Immigration giving this gentleman or have given him a work permit to be in charge of security, which goes against the policy of the Bahamas government? Not this administration, the government. That policy don't go nowhere. Boy, we got to wake up in this country because we got so much slackness going on, and we, how could this be? And then we got PFSOs on case with these funny names, and then when you call a meeting with all the PFSOs, you got these funny names and these funny voices in our highest level of security when it comes to ports, and the people who running it allowing it to happen. You ask them about it, they're trying to find an excuse. I know because I've been asking. And it's sickening. Anyway, I'm running out. We're talking maritime people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to our first break. And I think this could be our only break. The way things going now. When we return, we will go deeper into these topics. So listen, you don't want to miss this. We got some good stuff coming up.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Love 97 FM. Love 97 FM. Often imitated, never duplicated.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You are listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Joining me tonight is my producer of extraordinaries, the General himself, Mr. Sensational Craig Gibson. We are discussing the reversal decision on the $1 million China-built ship fee by the U.S. authorities. That was a mandate by the President Trump a couple months back. And the deadline expired on Thursday, and they decided they're going to give us, the regional shippers, a bly. And we got to thank God for that, because boy, let me tell you something. If that didn't happen, we'd have been facing some problems. Mind you, some good things would have come out of it, because the Bahamian fleet would have gotten a lot more jobs. And we can talk a little bit about that too, eh? Excuse me. We got to talk about that. We can't leave that out. We're also discussing tonight the employees at Great Stirrup Key, employees of Norwegian Cruise Line, complaining that they're being robbed. The number to call if you want it on the show is 326-8255. That's the number to call. And let me say at this point, good night, Auntie May! My Auntie May, up there in Freeport. Up there in Freeport is my Auntie May, 92 years old and going strong. She headed for 93 and then she got for 103. She didn't tell me. She knows she got at least 10 years in the tank. So, Auntie May, good night to you, honey. Stay strong, stay sweet. You know I love you to death. Oh yeah, I'm here loving you all the time. So if you all want to call and say hello to Auntie May, you can call me and say hello through me. And that's how Auntie May can get the message. I can make sure, because she's be listening. She right there listening and laughing. Boy, glad you could run on now. You're listening to Maritime Matters, people. And on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 17:05. And that's 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. Purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to maritime in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities. And we got a big opportunity on Stirrup Key. Not only to be the ones working on the key when it comes to cleaning up and transporting things and cooking and doing all the rest of that, but also the water sport equipment. People from Great Harbor Key should have all contracts to do any motorized or non-motorized equipment, not only on Stirrup Key, but also on Cocoa Key. And that's plenty work. And a lot of people could go back home just for them jobs. We can have some people coming to Nassau who would go there and live there just to do those jobs. But our government got to set it right. Our government got to set it right. The corruption got to cut out. According to one of my callers, he said, boy, that's all corruption. He wake on the key while he was building the dock, and he saw a lot of things going on. And he said, only corruption can have this like this. Because ain't no way on earth these people are supposed to have this much power and clout. And that's what it's all about. So we, the people, need to make sure we fix these things. I can call it out as I know it. You could call, the number to call is 326-8255. You could call, and you could call it out too. Don't have to be just me and my boy who used to wake on the dock at Ocean Key, at Cocoa Key. We got plenty of y'all working on all kind of keys, and y'all don't be there all the time. Sometimes y'all just be in Nassau, I don't know. So call the show and let us know what's going on the key where you work. Don't be scared, because if you're scared, it ain't gonna change. So the phone number to call us if you wish to reach the show, as I said, 326-8255. That's 326-8255. Call at any time. We only got about 40 minutes left, so don't wait too long. To hear a replay of this show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. 3 words, Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just like I love you, and I do. Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just go to YouTube on your electronic device and type into the search box, Maritime Matters Bahamas. And at this point, let me just say congratulations to our Carifta team. Boy, we do some running. But look, I was never so proud. You know, in the past so many years, Jamaica, you got to remember now. We got to be fair about this. Jamaica is the fastest runners in the world. So we could have been going up against any country other than Jamaica and win. Any country other than Jamaica and Carifta, and we probably would have been Carifta. But we going up against the fastest sprinters in the world. Bar none. And we holding our own. Boy, if you all ain't proud as Bahamians, you all got some problems. Because I am so proud of those young athletes. So congratulations again. And then it said that we didn't do this well against Jamaica, or with medal counts in the Carifta, since 1984. You know, 1984 was the days of the great Pauline Davis. That's when she rocked the whole. She just mashed up the Olympics, but we still have people mashing up on them. I mean, Carifta, sorry. Let's get it right. Carifta. So, congratulations to our boys and girls, under 17 and under 20, especially in those last couple relays. Oh boy, I was so proud. So, let's talk maritime. Hello. As we said before we took that break, the U.S. reversed that $1 million per port call fee on Chinese-built ships. In other words, prior to Thursday of last week, we knew that come Friday, all ships that were built in China visiting the U.S. would have to pay $1 million every time they come in. And we also knew that tropical shipping, which for the most part is the leading shipper, or the leading boats, the leading ships, as far as numbers are concerned. They bring more containers into the Bahamas and the Caribbean than any other carrier, right? So they're the leading carriers. And in their fleet, they have 19 ships. Some people call them vessels. I call them ships. Tropical, they get solid ships. Small, flat bottom, but solid, right? Because I used to inspect them. I can tell you. Tropical ships, out of the 19, 9 of them. And I think that's the most recent 9, because they're going on a spree building ships in China. And so, this decree that was made by President Trump, that if your vessel was built in China, you could pay $1 million every time you enter a U.S. port, was coming to bear on tropical shipping. But of course, there were pleas and bargainings and assertions by numerous entities, because tropical is that huge. Tropical is, you can remember, as I said earlier in the show, President Trump has his Mar-a-Lago resort in the same little city in Florida, West Palm Beach, as tropical shipping. So he's no stranger to tropical shipping. Also, is it Senator Marco Rubio or Governor Marco? I think it's Senator Marco Rubio, who's now the Secretary of State. He represented Florida for the past so many years. And if you're representing Florida and you know that in South Florida, tropical shipping is one of the largest shippers that ships out of, or that is based in Florida. Because they're huge. 19 ships, 19 big ships. They cover all over the place in the Caribbean and Central America. So you can imagine how much people they employ. You can imagine how much trucks be in and out of there. You can imagine how much cargo operators just to move them cargo around that have to go on all those ships. Crane drivers. They're laying in gantry cranes, but they certainly get straddle carriers, eh? And man, they get so much things going on. I've been at tropical facility numerous times while I was working with Intomico Shipping and on board the Freeport Flyer, going in and out of there to take certain things sometimes. And you get to see the extent of their operation. Huge. So, it's not a complete surprise to me that tropical shipping was positioned well enough to receive that exemption. And we got to thank our lucky stars that they got that exemption. So last Thursday, which would have been the 17th, the reversal was announced that certain Chinese-built vessels not subject to the fee, or they wouldn't be subject to that $1 million fee. And those would be the vessels that engage on short sea shipping voyages. When they say short sea voyages, according to SOLAS, short sea voyages would be less than 200 nautical miles from shore, right? Or less than 200 miles from a port of refuge, someplace where you could get assistance if you need it. They call them short sea voyages. And according to the entity in the U.S. that is responsible for this mandate or implementing this mandate, let me see if I can get the name for you, boy. The U.S. Trade Representative Office. So the people who run the Trade Representative Office, they said that the decision was made that vessels engaged on short sea shipping voyages, whether they built in China or not, they would not have to pay that fee. And that's how our friends Tropical Shipping was able to get out of that. And don't think only about Tropical Shipping now, because Tropical Shipping is contracted by our major hotels. Tropical Shipping is contracted by our major supermarkets, our major building material suppliers, like those ones, the big ones like Tops Lumber, JBR, FYP, CBS, with that one name out St. Albans Drive, all of them. They all use Tropical Shipping because Tropical Shipping has the logistics. That's the word they're looking for. Tropical Shipping has the logistics to fluently keep their supplies coming in. Tropical Shipping owns a lot of containers and flat racks, and they have a lot of ships. So they're not gonna have to have excuses why their goods didn't come in, right? Because Tropical Shipping is set up to effectively provide that service for all of them and then more. So if the apple cart has been disrupted by this mandate, Tropical Shipping themselves said they would have to close doors. Because why? According to Tropical Shipping, they average 15 visits to West Palm Beach per week. That's 2 a day. Every day, 2 of their ships coming back to West Palm Beach. And that means that would have been 2 times a day they would have to pay $1 million. Well, not necessarily, because all of the ships are not built in China. But when they look at the whole Japan and the ones that are built in China that are coming in, they realize that it will cost them $11.25 million per week in fees. And that calculated to be over $500 million a year. $500 million, that's $500 million. They don't make that much in profit. Mind you, in revenue, they make far more than that. But not in profit. Because, you know, when you make money, you guys spend money back on and shipping is a very expensive operation to maintain. I can tell you. That's why I ain't got no boat. People ask me, how come you ain't got a boat? Well, you already know what that costs. I got no money to be putting on a no boat. And I don't like boat that much. I ain't gonna lie. I could go on them and inspect them. And if I have to do a job, I could go run it as a captain and this and that and that. But I ain't like boats that much. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't grew up around boats. I learned boats from the Defense Force. I went private for a while. And I learned about managing ships. I learned all about laws of the sea, the SOLAS, the MAPO, the STCW, all the rest of that stuff. But I mean, I like it. I think my good friend Herbert Brain like it. He like boats. He ain't got no money. That's what he try to get you to believe. That boy got so much money. All right. So how about since this happened, right? And again, the number to call is 326-8255. You all like me to hear me running on. I could run on forever, you know. You all know that. But how about since this thing happened? We push our government. We, the Bahamian people, push our government to assist Bahamian ship owners, because this could happen again. Who knows if this could happen down the road again? We don't know. But push our government to assist Bahamian ship owners to expand their capacities for carriage, just in case this happens again. And they could do that by ensuring that, or mandating, that all procurements for government, any government institution, they are brought into the country, if they come through Florida, by a Bahamian ship owner. And we got a whole litany of those. The government could go in bed with one of them and say, this one we'll use only for bringing in BEC stuff, BPL stuff. This one only for Batelco stuff. That one only for Ministry of Works stuff. That one, like that. If something like this goes wrong, at least we know we got enough Bahamian boats to keep the government stuff going, eh? And that may catch on eventually to Super Value deciding, boy, look here, we could use a Bahamian-owned carrier, help them design a ship where we can have discounts on our goods coming in, and they will make 2 trips a week or 3 trips a week. That's bringing our stuff in on an ongoing basis. It don't have to be tropical shipping. It just so happened that we haven't explored the idea of utilizing Bahamian-owned vessels, because Bahamians could eventually get vessels the size of tropical shipping vessels if necessary, if they know that they're going to have the demand. And when things like this happen, we get to see what we wasn't looking for. We get to see things that we wouldn't have picked up on. And since this happened, and we realize how vulnerable we really can be, by one mandate of the President of America, or it could be a mandate from some other country, not only just the US. But we are so vulnerable because we importers. We import over 90% of what we utilize. And most of it, 90% of it coming through Florida. So why shouldn't we have local Bahamians owning the vessels that bring in more than half of the stuff? Especially the stuff for the government. That's our money. Our government using our money to buy these things. Why can't you use our money to pay for shipping with a Bahamian entity which stays in the country and not go back to West Palm Beach or other parts of the world? I talking sense or I talking sense? Man, somebody call me, man. 326-8255. Let me know if this makes sense. Our government should make a mandate that all procurements for government entities, Ministry of Education and all of you know, that are being imported via Florida, and we know that more than 80% is coming through Florida, be transported by Bahamian-owned ships. Pick your pick. Pick your pick. We got Elvin Taylor with her litany of ships. The Mailboat Company, they got quite a few ships. We got Dane Shipping, but quite a few. They got like 2 or 3 different vessels that go in and out the states, right? That's that Marcus, what's my boy name? Dane. We got Edens Taylor that got 1 or 2 boats that I'm sure if he knows this gonna happen, he'll have his boats getting in the states tomorrow. Who else we got? We got Bahamas Ferries. That has a ship, 1 or 2 of their ships going in and out of the US on a monthly basis, but they don't have the demand to do it weekly or daily, otherwise they probably will. Who else we got? Oh, Tom Hanna. Oh, my boy Tom Hanna. Tom Hanna got probably more ships than all the rest. Again, the demand is not enough to keep his ships busy. So if the government makes that mandate, they got a choices of ships ready to go, going in and out of Florida all the time now. Most of them just have to be Caribbean coded. And in other words, they're under 500 gross tons, so Solus don't apply. Marple apply if they're over 400 tons, eh? Because Marple don't play. they can, on minimum obligations to international law, and if they don't fix voyages or fix routes, that even make it easier, right? But yeah, they could do it. And there's no reason why we in the Bahamas shouldn't now look at trying to ensure that our government, when they're using our money to procure things, use Bahamian owned vessels to bring them in the country wherever, whenever they come into Florida. And that's my say on that. And that could happen like yesterday. And I don't think that will call for no corruption or this or that or the next. It's only a shift if Mr. Trump is shifting things for the sake of Americans. Why can't our Prime Minister shift things for the sake of Bahamians? It's simple. A lot of people don't like Mr. Trump, you know. And boy, I know my mommy couldn't stand him. But Mr. Trump is looking out for his people. He's saying that if you want to do business with us, then build your ships in our country. Don't build a ship all over the place, but you will still come and do business with us and get benefits. Otherwise, we can tax you. You can make you pay $1 million every time you come here. And the thing is, he only said China, you know. Suppose he say anywhere in the world other than the U.S. If your ship is built, when you come to the U.S. port, you're going to have to pay that $1 million. That shifts the paradigm to a broader spectrum. And that will probably start to include cruise ships. Boy, you know, these cruise ships making some money, eh? They're making some money. And you can't blame them, because they've been taking some licks during COVID. They couldn't move. They couldn't carry no passengers. They were losing, I think, over $500 million a day for months. In revenue, that is. They were losing over $500 million in revenues per day, when you add up all the money these cruise ships make worldwide. But of course, from that, they can spend plenty of money, because they still got to go buy food, buy this, buy that, maintain the ships, survey the ships. They spending more than half of that, and probably more than 80% of that. But they still making a good amount of money. They still building a lot of new ships. And I wanted to talk about the new Disney cruise line. That this can be not the largest ship in the world, but they can carry more passengers than any ship in the world. When they're supposed to come out the end of this year. We'll talk about that next week. And speaking about these cruise ships making money, let's go back to Norwegian Cruise Line. We got 20 minutes left. Let's use it. Norwegian Cruise Line. And I want you to know that this is only one situation on one of those private islands. We got a litany of private islands, you know, we only got one. We got one right next door to Great Stirrup Key, called Coco Key. Now, I don't know, because we haven't heard any reports of the staff saying they're being mistreated. But what stands out to me is you got 5-1 foreigners to Bahamians waking on the key. Is that the case with the Perfect Day at Coco Key? Is that the case with MSC Ocean Key? Is that the case with Disney Castaway Key and Disney Lighthouse Point in Lutra? Is that the case with Carnival and Half Moon Key and Princess Key? Because if that is the case, something has to be done about it. And we, the people who waking on these keys, got to cry out. I just had a call earlier. He was waking, and he wasn't waking on the key. He's waking on the dock. But if you're waking on the dock, you on the key, and you see what's going on. What about the Bahamians who waking on these keys? When y'all can start screaming out? Because there's no way in this day and time, this age, we should have anybody other than Bahamians working on it. I could guarantee you when they go to the US, no non-Americans working nowhere around what they're doing. And if they had a key in the US that they go to, trust me when I tell you, they would have Americans only working it. And I don't care about first world and they got more people than that. Yeah, they do. But you can't tell me we don't have people in this country that can fully occupy employment on those keys. Because I know better. If we could fully occupy employment in a big hotel like Atlantis or Bahamas, or what that one, the Tiger Woods, that one name down in the southwest there, Albany, then it's hard for me to accept that when it comes to these little private islands, these cruise ship owned, we don't even have no hotel. Bahamians can't do everything required to be done there. Because I know better. I bet on these keys. Let me see if any of them I didn't go on. I haven't been on Ocean Key. But I know they got plenty of foreigners there. I've been to Resort World Bimini. Well, that's basically a Bahamian operation, right? We don't let too much foreigners be on our major islands like that. Been to Castaway Key. Mostly Aberconians. One or two Freeport, one or two Nassau, but hey, they ain't get plenty foreigners working there. Mind you, they got some. And they just stretched themselves a little far, especially when it comes to security. Because they should have none in security. They should have none in water sport equipment. But they do put them in those areas. And our immigration department need to stop it. We need to stop issuing work permit for any area in this country where foreigners are working that our policy says reserved for Bahamians. And then in a lot of cases, we think they get work permit, they ain't really get none. Ask them to show it and they ain't got it. Because work permits are very specific. And if you get a work permit as a general worker, I don't know. I don't think that because those work permits say what kind of work you permitted to do. If you're a gardener, then the work permit should say you're a gardener. If you're a beach cleaner, the work permit should say you're a beach cleaner. If you're an electrician, the work permit should say you're an electrician. And we got good electricians in this country. So don't tell me no foreign electrician got to come here to do wiring on one of them key. Because they ain't that ain't even a hotel. We got people in the hotel, mainly Bahamians doing electrical and engineering work. So don't tell me that, because I ain't hearing it. Oh, getting tired now. 326-8255 is the number to call. So, the Director of Labor and his team should have gone to Great Stirrup Key to inquire and investigate these allegations of violations to our country's Labor Act, the Employment Act. And I believe that for the most part, Mr. Thompson and his people will find that yes, the violation is real, because I heard, you hear in the wind that they will apply the rules on board the ship to the workers on the quay. I remember one time when ISPS first started, I was advised one of these same private keys that the ship, the owners of the key, say they're going to apply the security of the ship on the key. In other words, they have a port facility security plan for the ship, and they say they can extend their ship plan to the shore. And I asked a simple question. I said, tell me something. If the code requires that every port facility have their own plan, could you use the port facility plan and apply it to the ship? No, you can't do that. I said, so how the hell you can apply the ship plan to the port facility? I said, no. We need to have a plan done up by a proper RSO in this country, because we have our own jurisdiction. The ship go all over the world. They have their own plan for their own purpose. And of course, they laughed me out of the room, because this is back when it first started, 2004. I ain't calling no names of our officials who basically allowed that to happen. But it happened. And I was really teed off about it. Right? And eventually it came around and they got me to go to the key. Boy, and I go on to that key. And they had nothing right on the key. The dock wasn't even protected from intruders coming onto the ship. And I did the audit. And that audit had over 30 non-conformities when I was finished. Then they had the guy call me from Canada. The guy called me from South America. And they running on for hours talking about my audit report and trying to figure out which one of them we could move. And I talked with the guy from Canada. You know, he's their consultant for port security. And when me and him was finished, we moved from 34 non-conformities to 32. Only 2 we could have taken out. And I was leaning about that. They didn't have to come out. We could only move 2. And he said, boy, yeah, they got some way. You know what they did? And I could tell you this on air, because this happened. They fired the top and the second top security people at Carnival in their headquarters. Because when they found out that this dock, not Carnival, why is saying Carnival? It ain't Carnival. And I ain't call the shipping line name, because y'all know what we're talking about, right? But they fire the top and the second. And they brought in new people, and you go to the day, and they got all the protections in place. Right? But they were just doing their own thing because it was their own private island and they figured they could do what they want to do, and don't worry about what the code say. But you know me, when I go to them places, I pull the code. You all got me talking by myself all night. 326-8255. The number to call if you want it on this discussion. I can't too deep, but port security. Let me get back to the Norwegian Cruise Line and great stirrup key, right? So the director's team should go on there either Wednesday or today. We need to find out what's going on. Anybody you know, please call and let me know. The employees claim that they are paid below minimum wage, between $2 and $4 an hour. Now our minimum wage way higher than that, right? Well, is it? I think it's either 5 something an hour. Yeah, much higher than that. 5 something an hour. And they also claim that they're working, I think, 10 hours a day. The 40-hour work week is a joke to what they doing, right? So they saying, with all these extra hours, we need to be paying time and a half. And apparently, they're not getting it. No overtime. They're getting paid no overtime. And plus, they're not being paid. When holiday come, they don't get holiday pay. I don't know about vacation, because normally you sign on for 6 to 8 months. You don't normally, I don't know about those keys, how long they sign on for. You know, vacation don't kick until after year 1. But some of them may have been there for years, who knows? But they say they don't get no vacation pay. Boy, but when you're working on contract, I don't know if vacation cuts into that, because every contract is separate. If you don't work for full year, then you're not eligible for vacation. If you sign a different contract when you come back, it ain't continuous. So I don't think I could knock NCL for that one. Norwegian Cruise Line, I don't think they're responsible for paying that vacation pay, because I don't think those people be on a key for more than a year at a time. And with reason. They do it that way so they don't have to pay vacation pay. So that's the way you can slip through the cracks. And we even got some people on land in the Bahamas, some resorts who try to have employees sign on for 11 months and 29 days, just so they don't reach that year to get vacation. So we still need to know, Mr. Director, if that trip happened, or anybody who wait to the Department of Labor, please call and let us know. The question that comes to mind is, what should be the actions of the Department of Labor as a result of these investigations? That's where we need to go. And some people may say, oh, they say maritime, you're getting off track. No, I'm not getting off track. You may say this is not maritime. Maritime includes labor. Right? The ILO and IMO work very close together in making sure seafarers are treated fairly when it comes to labor on board ships. And this is a ship-owned key. But what the Labor Department does when they investigate things like this and find out their infractions. I know on numerous occasions I was called in Because they summon you to come into the labor board for conciliation meetings, right? The person accused you, say you didn't pay them for something, or you fired them unreasonably, or whatever the case may be. And you got to go and you got to actually state, you got to defend yourself. And one thing I could say about the labor department, I want to say the labor board, but yeah, the labor board, you get to that later, right? But the labor department, the scale is always tipped in favor of the employee, not the employer. Now, some employees may think, oh, they're always on the employer side. No, sorry. They are always on the employee side. But now, they can only go as far as the law provides. So, I remember, I can talk about these things, man. There were numerous occasions when I went in, and of course, when they find out what really happened, because you know that the employees sometimes go, they don't tell them all of the truth. They tell them some. But when they find out all of the truth, they be like, hold on now, you do this. Why you don't tell us this? And then, we consider, they ask me, oh, but could you give them something? I say, I give them nothing. Because they bring me here, they should come to me and ask me for something. I don't know when the labor board asks me that. They ain't got nothing. They ain't got nothing for me because they don't know. I know my rights. I just don't give them nothing if I do nothing wrong. But of course, if I do something wrong, I'm more than happy to pay because I don't like to take advantage of people. I don't do that. So, reconciliation meeting, I think, would need to happen in the case of these complaints. If it is found that these complaints are valid, should there be court prosecutions? No. You don't want to put NCL in court, Norwegian Cruise Line, because, we get a lot of the Norwegian Cruise Line. These ships come to our docks, they bring thousands of people to our country, and that ain't the reason, The reason is because you have the reconciliation meeting, or the conciliation meeting, reconciliation, whatever it is. And if you don't get cooperation, then you could move to court prosecution. But I think in any case when these big entities get involved in these things, they're not looking for no court case and publicity, and they will make the adjustment based on the law once they know they're caught out. And everything should be cool after that. But while they're making an adjustment, please tell them. Also make the adjustment to hire 5-to-1 Bahamians. 5-to-1. 5 Bahamians to every 1 foreigner, as opposed to 5 foreigners to every 1 Bahamian. Make that next adjustment. Because you're in the Bahamas. And there's no need for you to bring all these workers to the Bahamas when we get Bahamians who could do those jobs. That's what I say. If you don't like it, then give me a call. 326-8255. I want a Norwegian Cruise Line to give me a call. I know they're checking, right? So, let me tell you how it goes on the ships, since I got 5 minutes left. The code of practice between the International Labour Organization and the International Maritime Organization sets it out in a way that once you wake on board a ship, an international ship, one that comes under the international regs, for example, a ship over 500 tons if it's a cargo ship trading between countries, or any passenger ship, any ship that carry more than 12 passengers for hire trading between countries, they are international trading ships. And they are required for every employee on board any of their ship or on board a ship, international ship, they're required to give them 10 hours rest every single day. Minimum. It could be 12, it could be 14, it could be 16. But they cannot make them wake for more than 14 hours a day in any one day. They can wake up at 14. Boy, but that's tough, eh? But in that 10 hours, they are required to give them at least 6 hours straight of rest. So you can't wake them for 14 hours. And we're not talking about 14 hours straight, We're talking 7 hours in a day, 7 hours in a night. Because on those ships, they do shifts. You do shifts. you on watch twice in any one day. Not you do your whole straight time straight up. No, you do shift. So you got rest periods between your shifts. And how it normally works is when you get your time off, they could put you to work. They could put you to work 7 hours and then give you 5 hours off. That make 12 hours. And then you work another 7 hours and get 5 hours off. But they will be violating the ILO requirements, International Labor Organization, which say you must give an employee at least 6 straight hours rest period within any 24-hour period. So you could, what you would need to do, perhaps, if you want them to work the 14 hours, is let them work 8 hours and then get 4 off. And then work 6 and get 6 off. But you have to give them at least 6 or 7. Well, you can work 9 hours and get 3 off. And then work 5 and get 7 off. Or whatever, 8 off, or whatever the case may be. But you have to split it up in a way that when he get his rest period, at least one of those rest period got to be at least 6 hours a day. That's what the International IMO Code of Practice calls for. Right? But what we used to do is, because we know, okay, the guy on watch in the night, he got to stay. If he's an engineer, he got to go in the engine room. Right? In the daytime, he got to work cargo, because the cargo operation is during the daytime. Normally. Some go 24 hours. But that's bulk carriers, since I talking about regular containerized cargo operation and stuff. But when they go to container port, they're working all night, right? But what we used to do with our little operation, we used to work in the daytime. We go to tropical shipping, we go to Freeport, we go wherever. Daytime is cargo, right? So one would be while most of the seamen deck, right? So they already put in 6, 7 hours in port. So you know they have to wake that night. They have to do a shift. Once the ship moving, somebody got to be steering the ship and being locked out and all the rest of that. So we had to make sure sometime between those shifts, night and day, they get a straight 6 hours off. And that wasn't hard to do. It wasn't hard to do. And we set it up that way. But we would give them fixed overtime. In other words, you work 8 hours plus an extra 2 hours every day. Because when you ain't doing cargo, you got to paint and chip and maintain the boat. You have to maintain the ship on a daily basis. So we give you extra 2 hours. Pay. In addition to 8 hours, that is be time and a half. And then if we need you to do, if we're doing a project where we have to really push something out, we may need to give you extra overtime. And that could be another 2 hours. So in the daytime, you work your 8 hours, then you work the 2 hours, fixed overtime, then you work another 2. So that's 10, 12 hours you work that day. But you're getting compensated accordingly. And that's what the ships require. So even if these people working on the key under the ship regulations or ship requirements for labor, they still need to get that time and a half and that extra overtime time and a half. That's the way it goes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, since ain't nobody want to call me, you're going to hear my voice all night. You did. But I thank you for listening. You have been listening to Maritime Matters. We have reached the end of the rope, or end of the line. And that being said, we want to thank our wonderful producer, Mr. Craig Gibson. We want to thank our one caller, boy, and he really had a lot to say. Talk about the corruption, but he worked at Cocoa Key for a while, and all the rest of that. And so, with that, I say good night to Annie Mae. I say thank you to my sponsors, Bahamas Maritime Connection, Island Care Pharmacy, and of course, 101 Pharmacy. And as always, we say Maritime Matters, tick, 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 out.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in. Then I'll watch them roll away.